Marhaba. Right now I'm going to talk about an alternative way to construct the superlative in Arabic, which we call wazn fu'ala. You're probably familiar with the most common way to construct a superlative in Arabic, which we call af'al at-tafdeel. And if you need a refresher on af'al at-tafdeel, there's a separate video just on that you can go back and take a look at. Af'al is the most common way to construct basic superlatives in Arabic. We take an adjective like fasih or kabir or wasit or azim, and we put it into that af'al pattern. We extract the root and we put it in there. So from fasih, we get afsah, eloquent, even more eloquent, or the most eloquent. Wazn fu'ala is a superlative that we use only for describing grammatically feminine things. In modern usage, it tends to be limited mostly to certain fixed words and expressions, but it's good to be able to recognize it when we see it and understand what's going on. So, what we're going to do right now is take a look at some of these examples and some fixed constructions where we're likely to see fu'ala instead of af'al at-tafdeel, that more normal construction that we might expect. Fasih, as I said, an adjective that means eloquent, as in eloquence of speech. And ordinarily, if we were describing someone or something that was even more, or the very most eloquent, we would say afsah. But if we put it into fu'ala, that wasn't instead, we would get fusha, as in that phrase you probably know, al-arabiyya al-fusha. The most formal Arabic, what we use when we want to talk about formal Arabic or modern standard Arabic, al-arabiyya al-fusha. Kabir, an adjective you probably know, and ordinarily if we're talking about something even bigger, we would say akbar. But certain situations require us to use wazn fu'ala, as in if we're talking about Greater Cairo, the city of Cairo and its environs, we would say Al-Qahira. We wouldn't say Al-Qahira al-Akbar probably, we would say Al-Qahira al-Kubra. That's just convention, what we tend to say. A wasit, meaning kind of middle or medial, we would get a superlative awsat ordinarily. You probably recognize that from ash-sharq al-awsat, the Middle East. We're actually saying the Middleist East. It's sort of a funny use of a superlative, but again, it's just convention. But if we want to talk about the Middle Ages, we would say al-usur al-wusta. Since usur is plural, ages, not just one age, it requires typically a feminine adjective, and here again, just because of convention, we wind up saying al-usur al-wusta instead of al-usur al-awsat. Last example, azim, which is an adjective that means great. Ordinarily, we would render it a'zam in modern Arabic if we wanted to talk about something even greater, or the very greatest. But if we're talking about Great Britain, convention dictates that we say Britannia al-Uzma. And that's pretty much it. As I said, typically we tend to encounter this in fixed phrases and fixed expressions. It would not be incorrect, for example, to talk about being the oldest girl or the youngest girl in a family and say al-bint al-kubra instead of akbar bint or al-bint al-akbar, or if we want to say the youngest, al-bint الصغرى. Those constructions are allowed. If we use them in our normal speech or our normal writing, it might give us a certain very formal classicizing flavor. It could affect how your speech or your writing is perceived. Technically, though, grammatically speaking, we could do that. That's an acceptable variation. And again, for us as learners of Arabic, the most important thing is that we have our eyes peeled so that when we see one of these fu'ala constructions, we understand what they mean.